This is going to be a really short video on coefficients and constants. This is just some definitions, and really all there is to it is we just have to remember which one is which. There's no trick, there's no real deep understanding to be had. It's just words. So here's an expression, 2x plus 1. In this case, the 2 is the coefficient, and the plus 1, that is the constant. Okay? The way I remember is that I think of coefficient as as in like cooperative. It's cooperative with the variable, as in they're kind of together. So the variable and the coefficient, they are together. So the coefficient here, of course, is 2, and the constant is 1. So the constant doesn't ever change because it's not actually attached to the variable, right? So if the variable changes, then that's going to affect the 2, or the 2 and the x are kind of together, but then the constant isn't actually attached to a variable, so we think of it as kind of a constant. So that's kind of how I remember it. There is one thing to understand, or I guess two things to understand, and it's in these special cases. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the expression 5x. Okay, if I asked you what the constant is, you might. Well, I hope you wouldn't say 5 because that's the coefficient, but you might just say that it doesn't have a constant, and in a lot of ways you are right, but you also have to remember that if I add 0 to something, it doesn't actually change it in any way. So in this case, it's plain to see that the constant is 0. So here would be our constant. Another kind of funny example is what would happen if you had, I don't know, x plus 3, and you asked, what's the coefficient? Well, again, you might say, I hope you wouldn't say 3, because 3 is the constant. But if I asked you, what's the coefficient? Well, you might be tempted to say it doesn't have a coefficient. But if I multiply this x by 1, I don't actually change it. So in this case, the coefficient is 1. So you always have a constant, you always have a coefficient. Sometimes it's just not exactly clear which is which.